Bridge on the River Kwai wasn't just a war movie, it was a psychological duel dressed as an adventure epic. A film forged not only in the jungles of Sri Lanka, but also in chaos, exhaustion, and obsession, from collapsing bridges to clashing egos, from tropical fevers to broken spirits. This production nearly destroyed everyone involved. Today we reveal 20 weird facts about the bridge on the River Kwai. The bridge was actually built twice. The crew didn't just build one bridge, they built two. The first was too small for the massive explosion finale that David Lean envisioned, so production designer Donald Ashton ordered a full rebuild deep in the jungle using local labor and authentic materials. Each plank was handmade under scorching sun and monsoon rain. When the bridge was finally destroyed, it was a one-take event, filmed with multiple cameras. The explosion shook the valley and cameras nearly toppled. What audiences saw wasn't movie magic. It was a real bridge obliterated by real explosives after months of labor. Lean later said it was both the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever filmed. Alec Guinness thought the script was insane. When Alec Guinness first read the script, he called it madness. He was furious that his character, Colonel Nicholson, appeared delusional rather than heroic. He even threatened to quit, insisting the role insulted British officers. David Lean convinced him by reframing Nicholson not as mad, but as tragically obsessed with order. On set, Guinness often argued over dialogue, refusing to perform scenes he found unconvincing. Yet his subtle rigidity became the film's heartbeat. The scene where he salutes the bridge before dying wasn't in the script. Lean added it on the spot, and Guinness resisted until he saw the dailies. Then he admitted Lean was right. That silent salute would win him an Oscar and define his career. William Holden was paid more than the director. While Alec Guinness carried the prestige, it was William Holden who cashed the real check. Columbia Pictures paid him a staggering $300,000 plus a percentage of the profits, making him one of the highest-paid actors of the decade. David Lean earned far less and resented Holden's Hollywood privilege. The American star's role was also expanded after studio pressure to appeal to U.S. audiences. Holden's cynicism contrasted with Guinness's discipline, creating a dynamic that mirrored real tension between American pragmatism and British formality. Behind the scenes, Holden often refused to take orders from Lean and demanded a private tent away from the rest of the crew. Yet his weary performance as Shears gave the film its soul, a reluctant hero trapped between survival and conscience. The jungle nearly killed the cast. Filming took place in Sri Lanka's jungles under brutal conditions. Temperatures soared above 100 degrees and humidity drenched the cameras. Cast and crew suffered from leeches, mosquitoes, and tropical diseases. Jeffrey Horn collapsed from heat exhaustion, while crew members battled malaria and dysentery. David Lean himself lost weight and became feverish, yet refused to stop filming. Equipment malfunctioned daily, and reels of footage had to be dried over campfires. When monsoon rains flooded the set, the crew built rafts to float the cameras. Every scene you see on screen is soaked in real sweat and suffering. The jungle wasn't a backdrop, it was an adversary that tested everyone's sanity. By the end, several crew members swore they would never work on location again. The Whistling March wasn't originally in the movie. The iconic Colonel Bogey March wasn't David Lean's idea. British soldiers on set began whistling it between takes, and Lean loved the eerie morale it created. Composer Malcolm Arnold reworked the tune into the film's score, blending it with his own march, the River Kwai March. The result became instantly recognizable worldwide. Yet the march caused problems. The song's original lyrics were bawdy military humor, something the producers feared would offend audiences, so Lean ordered it to be whistled instead of sung. That single creative choice transformed a vulgar barrack tune into a timeless symbol of defiance. The whistling became the film's heartbeat, representing discipline under madness and irony under oppression. To this day, veterans still recall whistling it during real jungle marches. David Lean fired crew members on the spot. The perfectionist vision of David Lean pushed the production to breaking point. He demanded absolute control, and even minor disagreement could end a career. When the cinematographer questioned a camera setup, Lean dismissed him instantly in front of the entire crew. He later replaced several sound engineers for failing to capture the jungle ambiance to his liking. Actors were terrified of him, yet they admired his focus. He would spend entire days waiting for one perfect light across the bridge or the reflection of water at dusk. Lean's obsession created tension, but also genius. The result was a film so meticulously composed that every frame looked like a painting carved from sweat and discipline. The crew feared him, yet they followed him into madness because he made them believe the suffering would outlive them. Real explosives were used without safety protocols. When the final bridge explosion was filmed, there were no stunt doubles, no CGI, and almost no safety regulations. The explosives team packed the structure with dynamite while cameras rolled from every angle. Actors and crew were instructed to hide behind the hills and hope the blast went as planned. A single mistimed cut could have destroyed the cameras worth thousands of dollars. One of the Kwai train engines used in the scene was an actual working locomotive that was blown up for real. The explosion was so powerful that debris flew hundreds of feet into the air and fragments rained down across the valley. Lean stood behind the main camera himself, refusing to miss the shot. The risk was total, but the footage was unforgettable. Japanese veterans were deeply offended. After its release, many Japanese veterans and citizens condemned the film for its portrayal of their soldiers as brutal and incompetent. Survivors of the real Burma Railway called it an insult to history and humanity. They argued that the movie ignored the suffering of Asian laborers and exaggerated British heroism. In Japan, the film faced boycotts and public outcry, forcing distributors to tone down promotional materials. David Lean defended his approach, saying the story was about obsession, not nationality. Yet the controversy lingered for decades. Historians later pointed out that both sides were victims of madness, not villains and heroes. The debate turned the movie from simple entertainment into a complex moral statement on pride and delusion in war. Guinness almost drowned during filming. During one of the river sequences, Alec Guinness slipped from the bridge support and fell into fast-moving water. The current pulled him under while cameras kept rolling, unaware of the danger. Crew members rushed to pull him out moments before he vanished downstream. Guinness emerged shaken, covered in leeches, and furious that safety measures were so poor. He later joked that Nicholson's obsession with discipline nearly killed him for real. After that incident, Lean ordered the actors to rehearse near the river under supervision, but the fear remained. That near drowning added an unspoken tension to Guinness's later scenes by the river. The calm composure you see in his eyes hides a memory of chaos that could have ended the film entirely. Screenwriter Carl Foreman was blacklisted. Carl Foreman co-wrote the script, but his name was almost erased from the credits. During the height of Hollywood's Red Scare, he was accused of communist sympathies and fled to England to escape interrogation. The studio removed him from promotional materials and refused to pay royalties. For years, credit went solely to Pierre Boulle, the French novelist who wrote the original book, even though Boulle did not speak English. Foreman's name was restored only decades later, after official records confirmed his authorship. His exile mirrored the film's theme of men punished for loyalty to principle. Hollywood's paranoia destroyed his career, just as war destroyed the bridge. Yet his words survived, buried in the script like a ghost haunting every frame. Censors tried to cut the ending. When the film was first shown to studio executives, the ending horrified them. They wanted Colonel Nicholson to survive so the story could end on a triumphant note. David Lean refused. He insisted that Nicholson's death and the destruction of the bridge were essential to the film's message about pride and insanity. The British Board of Film Censors called the finale too shocking for audiences, while American producers feared it would hurt box office returns. Lean stood firm and said war is not about victory, it is about the destruction of the soul. Against all pressure, the original ending remained intact. That decision turned the final explosion into one of cinema's greatest moments, a haunting symbol of moral collapse that no studio note could sanitize. The river was not the River Kwai. The actual River Kwai is in Thailand, but the movie was filmed hundreds of miles away in Sri Lanka. The river used for filming was the Kalani River near Kitulgala. Tourists began visiting Thailand after the film's success, expecting to see the bridge and were disappointed to find none existed. In an ironic twist, the Thai government later renamed part of the Mai Klong River as the Kwai Yai to match the film. The movie literally changed geography. Local authorities built a tourist bridge that still stands today, even though it bears no relation to the real construction site from World War II. The line between myth and history blurred forever, turning Lean's fiction into a tourist landmark. The jungle may forget, but cinema rewrites the map. Lean's perfectionism broke his crew. David Lean's pursuit of visual perfection drove everyone to exhaustion. He ordered countless retakes, often demanding actors repeat simple gestures dozens of times until they matched his mental rhythm. He once made Alec Guinness walk across the bridge for 2 days straight to capture the perfect balance of sunlight and shadow. Cameramen collapsed from heat. Assistants cried from fatigue. Lean refused to compromise. His obsession with symmetry and silence made each shot feel sacred. He said the bridge was not just wood and steel, but the spine of Nicholson's madness. The pressure paid off. Every frame radiated precision, yet behind that precision were sleepless nights and bloodshot eyes. The bridge consumed its builders both on screen and behind the lens. A real train engineer controlled the crash. For the climactic explosion scene, a retired British railway engineer was brought in to ensure the train crashed correctly. He calculated the track angles and timing with military precision. The engine had to hit the bridge at the exact moment of detonation or the entire shot would fail. There was no second chance. The engineer rode inside the locomotive until seconds before impact, then leapt off into the river. The train collided perfectly, and the bridge erupted in fire. Lean captured it all in a single take. The engineer later said it was the most frightening moment of his life, yet also the proudest. One wrong calculation could have killed him. Instead, it created one of the most iconic shots ever filmed. The novel's author never liked the movie. Pierre Boulle, who wrote the original novel, respected the craftsmanship but disliked the adaptation. He believed the film distorted his story's intent by turning Nicholson into a tragic hero rather than a satirical figure. In the book, the character is delusional from the start, representing the absurdity of military pride. Lean's film gave him dignity and redemption, which Boulle saw as betrayal. Yet irony followed. When the Academy Award for Best Screenplay was announced, it went to Boulle, even though he had not written a single line of the script in English. Because the real writers were blacklisted, his name became the symbol of mistaken credit. The author who disliked the movie ended up winning the Oscar for it. David Lean nearly quit halfway through filming. By the middle of production, David Lean was ready to walk away. The endless rain destroyed sets. The jungle swarmed with leeches and tempers exploded daily. Lean felt trapped between studio demands and the chaos of location shooting. When the bridge collapsed prematurely during an early explosion test, he locked himself in his tent and refused to speak for a day. Producer Sam Spiegel flew to the set to calm him down and threatened to take the film away if Lean did not return. Lean finally emerged at dawn and ordered a full rebuild from scratch. He told the crew that if they were going to suffer, they might as well suffer for something that would last forever. That day, his obsession turned from frustration into determination, and the legend was reborn. The extras were real prisoners and laborers. Many of the background performers seen hauling wood or hammering nails were actual Sri Lankan prisoners and laborers hired by the government. They worked under the same blistering sun and muddy conditions as the cast, but for little pay. David Lean insisted on realism and believed no professional actor could mimic the exhaustion of real manual labor. The local workers were given food, clothing, and a small bonus for their efforts. Some later described the filming as both brutal and unforgettable. What they built on screen mirrored what others endured in history. Their sweat and pain became the foundation of the film's authenticity. In a strange way, they too were prisoners of the bridge, even if only for the camera's gaze. Alec Guinness regretted the role years later. After winning the Oscar for his performance, Alec Guinness confessed that he felt uneasy about how audiences viewed Colonel Nicholson. He said people saw him as noble, when in truth Nicholson was consumed by arrogance. Guinness believed the film glorified obedience to authority rather than questioning it. He called Nicholson a warning, not a hero. In later interviews, he admitted he almost refused the Academy Award ceremony because he felt the recognition misunderstood his intent. Yet, despite his doubts, his portrayal remains one of the most complex in cinema. His rigid posture, his clipped voice, and his haunted eyes turned a single man's obsession into a symbol of civilization's madness. Even Guinness could not escape the bridge's shadow. The movie was banned in some British colonies. In the late 1950s, several British colonial governments, including Malaysia and parts of Africa, banned the bridge on the River Kwai. Officials claimed the film encouraged sympathy for prisoners and undermined military authority. They feared it might inspire unrest among soldiers stationed abroad. Screenings were halted and reels confiscated. Ironically, these bans only increased the film's mystique. Bootleg screenings flourished in army camps where soldiers whispered about the forbidden picture that mocked blind loyalty. Years later, when censorship softened, the same governments praised the movie as a masterpiece of moral conflict. The bridge that once symbolized control had become a symbol of resistance. History proved that even fiction can frighten empires. The soundtrack was recorded in secret. Composer Malcolm Arnold battled the studio over the film's tone. Executives wanted triumphant brass, but Arnold saw it as tragedy. He secretly recorded a darker version of the score during off hours using a smaller orchestra and hidden reels. When David Lean heard it, he immediately chose it over the official version. The haunting contrast between cheerful whistles and ominous drums gave the film its uneasy duality. It sounded like victory collapsing into madness. Arnold's defiance went uncredited, but his decision transformed the movie's identity. The music became inseparable from its meaning. Cheerful yet fatal, determined yet doomed, every whistle carries both pride and despair, echoing through cinema for generations. Bonus fact: the real bridge still exists beneath the river. Long after the production ended, locals discovered fragments of the original film bridge buried beneath the Kalani riverbed. Metal bolts and wooden beams still lie scattered under the water, preserved like relics of obsession. Divers report finding them decades later, half covered in silt and moss. It is as if the bridge refused to die. Some call it a ghost monument to the madness of art and war alike. David Lean once said, "A film is a kind of bridge between reality and illusion." He had no idea how true that would become. Beneath the calm current, the remnants whisper the same word that ends the movie: madness. The bridge on the River Kwai began as a war story, but became something far greater. It exposed how honor can twist into obsession and how creation can destroy its makers. It taught audiences that victory means nothing if built on madness. More than 60 years later, its echo still haunts cinema classrooms and conscience alike. If you loved uncovering the secrets behind this masterpiece, go ahead and like this video, subscribe for more hidden stories from film history, and remember,